Jyotindra, uh, would like to know you are the brother of Sunanda Ben and you have a long family history associated with the ashram. So last month, Pratap Bhai, your brother, he shared his experiences with the mother and Sundo, whatever he contact we had. So it's an opportunity for us as you have come here to have your experiences, your contact with the mother. So to begin with, please tell us how, uh, where you lived before coming to the ashram and how you heard about mother and Shivundo, and then your stay in ashram. So please continue from here.
Thank you. Most of us who came here at a very young age were obviously, we heard about the mother and Sri Aurobindo from our parents. In my case, my father Shivabai was very active in running a center in Nairobi in Kenya, and there are many ashramites, ex-East African ashramites, who were introduced to Sri Aurobindo's philosophy by Shivabai. Be they in Kenya, Uganda, Tanganyika. He was a prominent lawyer and a politician, a socialist politician. So he traveled a lot. And through that, there are many here who would have said the first time they heard the name Sri Aurobindo was through Shivabai. So me being his youngest son, I would have been 6 years old. And I don't remember whether it was on All India Radio or must have been a telegram from Dumanbai or All India Radio that on December the 5th, 1950, we got intimation of Sri Aurobindo's passing on. And we had a guest from London, my father, my mother, and I was too young to be left back home. So I had Sunanda Ben, Pratap Bhai, another sister, Bhadra Ben. They were left behind. And we flew. That was my first experience of flying. That's important. But Air India Super Constellation, from Nairobi to Aden, we had to stop the night. From Aden to Bombay, we had to stop the night. And from Bombay to Madras and to Pondicherry. So I think we left on the 6th of December and we got here on the evening of the 9th. So we actually missed the Samadhi. But we reached here on the 9th. So that's my first visit to Pondicherry. And to say at the age of 6 that I was smitten would be untrue. At the age of 6, mind is full of mischief. And I remember we used to stay in a house at the far end of town, rented house. And I must have stayed 2 or 3 months during that visit. And it wasn't until the year or so after that Sunanda Ben came here first, and the three of us, Pratap, Bhadra and I, we followed about a year later. And so that is the beginning, if you like. Pondicherry was a much quainter town then. You know, the trains used to come all the way to where the Gandhi statue is today. There was a pier there. And there is no special significance to meeting mother in those days. You could see her 2, 3, 4 times a day if you wanted to. So people, 6, 7-year-olds, either we'd go to the tennis ground, but normally we had group, we were in green room, or she would come to the playground here, Borada's group. In the evening, we used to go and wait near the ashram where her car used to come in the evening. And there would be what? 6, 10 of us, not a big crowd. A few ashramites, then she would come. And you always felt, even at this balcony darshan in the mornings, you were absolutely convinced, and you'd talk even as a 6, 7-year-old, you'd say, "Did you notice? She looked at me. She looked at me." Everybody felt that she especially looked at you. So that was very special. The fact that she was very approachable. It wasn't this big Guruji figure that you couldn't approach. She was very approachable, and for the young ones particularly so. And the best time to talk to her was when she gave groundnuts in the evening. Right? She either talked to you or you could say, excuse-moi, doucement, and she would stop, wait, and if you had a little complaint, that's when you talk. The whole conversation might take 10 seconds, but it was sorted out. So one of my earliest memories, I think people who know me from that era would say Jyotindra was very naughty. Some people call it adventurous. Mother never restricted me. So for instance, I started bunking afternoon school. I was living in boarding, Padma. Padma was a Swiss lady who ran a boarding. So I was in her boarding. I started bunking afternoon school. Those days we had no money. Nobody had any money. Ashram bread and bananas was the currency. So you gave a loaf of bread or some bananas to the rickshaw driver, he would take you places. But I started bunking some afternoon classes, not all of them. And I had become friendly. This was the sheer joy of ashram. Your friends were not all your same age. At that time, my best friend was Sudhir Sarkar. Sudhir Da is Manada's father, of the Andaman Island fame. So he became very friendly with me. And he had a farm. He used to look after a farm on the way to Jipmer, somewhere on the left. That was all fields in those days. And he had taken me there once. The fantastic news was he gave me 2 coconuts. 2 coconuts tied together on the handlebar. So I thought that's a good place to go. And then I started learning pottery there. Very early age. I couldn't even reach the middle. So the man there used to turn it and then show me how to make the clay. And I started turning a few pots. So at playground in the evening when the mother came with groundnuts, somebody must have whispered into her ear that this boy is bunking class. And she said, wait. And then she stopped it in front of me and asked me, where do you go? And I told her, I think, Sudhir Sarkar. And she said, Sudhir Sarkar? So I said, I go to the pottery. Oh, didn't say anything else. 2 days later, she stopped. She said, I've got a job for you. I think I must have been 7 or 8 years old. And I said, oui, ma'am. And she said, you know, I love my yogurt. And somehow it doesn't keep well. She said, if you could make me 2 pots to keep my yogurt out of this terracotta, that would be very good. I couldn't wait. I couldn't. If Sudhir had taken me at night, I would have gone. The next day, I went to school in the morning, afternoon on my cycle, and I started ordering around all the workers there. I have to make pots for the mother. I have to make these pots. So that wasn't turned on the wheel. So they took an old glass pot, made a mold from it. We made that, we fired it. And I remember taking one to the mother, and then she had used it, she liked it, and she wanted a second one as a replacement. So that was the relationship with the mother. When people, students who came afterwards, students who have not met the mother, but heard through stories like mine. Very difficult to explain the relationship the mother had with 6, 7, 8-year-olds. I also remember my earliest memories, again being naughty and not attending everything. Evening classes in the playground. All the serious people, people like Tara Johar, who were captains, they were very strict. If you made any noise or anything, mother didn't tell you off, Tara, they would tell you off. And so we used to hide in the corner, just by the door. Sometimes sit outside by the window, and you could hear the exchange between the mother and the students. And after a while, you'd run away. So that was the kind of life there. Discipline-wise, I remember once Robert, Olga's son, younger son, Robert was with me. And I don't know the reason why Robert and I were taken in front of Dada. And without any explanation or anything. He held Robert by the neck, me by the neck, and he banged our heads together. It was like smashing coconuts. I really, like the cartoons, I saw stars. And for once, when you got totally confused as to why, it was nothing serious. It could have been talking, making a noise. But I remember Robert went in a corner and started crying, and I went like a rocket. When mother used to come to the playground, she used to go to her room. Then there was the groundnut distribution. Then she used to go back into the room. This was before the groundnut distribution. I knew she'd be in her room. And there were one or two ladies standing there, Sumidadi and all that, past everybody. And I went straight and sat down by her feet. And I said, "Je ne comprends pas." And she looked at me and said, "My child, what's happened?" And I said, that my head's been bashed. Robert and me. Pourquoi? Totally confused. And oh boy, the mother did not approve of physical duress or punishment of any of her children, even if it's pranabdha. She would have a word with him. She would have a very severe word with him not to do it. So again, there was no fear in the ashram at that time, not children of our age. I don't think even the older children. And the mother-child relationship, again, I must have been 11, 12. Academically, you could select your subjects. It's not like today. You know, if you liked science, but you didn't do too well the previous year, you can ask, "Can I do it again?" And I remember I'd done that with Shantida. I used to like his classes because he was very relaxed. And if you wound him up, he would tell you stories instead of teaching you science. So we liked Shantida. And I'd repeated science, and in the school, towards the back of the school, towards the Ganesh Mandir, there was a little courtyard. That is where the annual prize giving was done. And the little ones were stood round the back, and she was reading out Prix d'honneur, Premier Prix, and etc. And suddenly my name was mentioned. And somebody nudged me, said, "Joe, it is you." So I looked up, and she was nodding her head. Premier Prix aux sciences. And she turned round and looked at Shanti Doshi, and he went like that. And when I went up, she said, "Toi?" And I was equally surprised. I said, "Oui, Usman." And I was given the first prize for science. Do you know, since then I feel I have done a lot. As a lot of you know, I was an officer in the Royal Air Force. I flew aeroplanes in England. I've traveled the world. That first prize in science is a very, very special prize for me, and I still have it. So that's again,
That's a card with
card. It was a blue card. The second prize used to get a green card. First prize was a blue card. And it's amazing that
Those are very special. We don't get to see them now.
yeah. So that's yet another example. I remember somebody telling on me, Kanuda and I were together. Little fellows.
Dramatist.
Kanu and I were caught eating fish. A standard store. We got a small tin of pilchards. Small tin used to get you open like that. Now in those days there was no corner house. I don't think we had just started getting eggs. Lena used to give us eggs. But you were not allowed to eat anything else. So where he had got it from, he had taken me, and quietly we were sitting on the rocks near tennis ground in the afternoon. And we were reported. That evening again, this is how we felt Mother knew everything. She controlled us. And the way she looked at you, you knew you had done something. And she whispered that you've had fish. And I'm thinking, how does she know? But as a child, all you thought about. There was no raised voices, no scolding, but that she knew. You and Colonel had quietly sat down and eaten fish. Mother knew. That was all. That was the only communication. So that gives you some insight. Each one of us would have such wonderful stories about the mother. I didn't go to any of her classes, as I say, would stand on the periphery. I know one or two memories where we took part in plays, dramas. In one, I was a donkey. A lot of ashram students of the period, because there's a full page picture in the bulletin that Anjana Ben and we did a Japanese dance. And I think Anjana Ben's father had sent the costumes from Singapore. But we all know mother's background with Japan. So wearing these kimonos, and so they're fitted properly, they're properly worn, the mother made sure it was just so. And the dance, we had to sing a Japanese song whilst we did it. And she supervised that. So many things.
It was done in school or the playground?
Playground. And attention to detail. I remember occasionally we'd have, the theatre wasn't quite ready then. So major events were in the playground. They used to build a stage. Once there was to be a dance recital. No, two. One was a French lady who was going to do ballet. Another time there was an Indian dancer, Chandralekha or somebody. She was to dance. But one thing children then and today never forgot was the timing. You know, we live in today's modern India. The higher they go, the less attention they pay for. If they come late, it's supposed to be very clever. I'm so important. They even hold up flights by coming late. The VVIPs. Mother was so meticulous. She would come and sit down. And you needn't look at your watch or look. You would know it is 10 minutes to the start of the program. About with 1 minute to go, the lights would dim. And when the curtain opened, if this ballet dancer or Chandralekha, the Bharatanatyam dancer, wasn't on stage, that's her problem. That's her problem for not being on the stage. So that is something I've learned and it stayed with me.
Or she used to go before time, at least
Yeah.
before the start.
Yes, she would be there 10 minutes before the start, she'd be there.
But Dada used to say she used to keep, fast the time so that it's already time, so mother will go. So
Yeah.
Dada used to slow it down.
Yeah? Oh, I see. Okay, okay. You put the clock back a bit, yeah. But, and so she was a very physical embodiment here. To us children, I don't know. I've often been asked by people within my own family, very close to me, that what was the difference between her and your mother? You know, Ma is Ma. Oh, why this special reverence? And later on you hear about Mother Teresa and people's experiences there, and they ask you questions to relate. Was there something similar? Very difficult to answer that question, because our experience, we didn't know at the time. At that time we didn't know. For instance, if my mother was visiting, if she scolded me, if I'd lost a pair of chappals, she would tell me off. I would argue with her. I'd taken my slippers off there, somebody must have taken it. But with this Ma, there was never those kind of arguments, you know. You just knew, it wasn't because of fear. The sheer love, a lot of us remember that. You know, it could be a 2-second, 3-second glance, word spoken here or there. Even when she was angry, but there was sheer love. There was no fear whatsoever. And it goes on. People like me can relate so many stories. It goes on till the time I was 16 or 17. My father had come from Africa. I was the youngest. And as any child would be, I was tempted to look at the world, the other side of the ashram. So I asked my father, I said, will you take me back to Africa? And he said, I can't make that decision. You have to ask the mother. So around 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon, there was a time when you could go upstairs. Top of the stairs, she'd be sitting there. So my father had taken time and he took me up there and he just gently coaxed me, Diman Bhai, Amrita Da, they would all be standing there. And mother looked up, said, we? And I knelt down and I said, Mother, I want to go with my father. And she looked at one or two of the others and shook her head and said, why? So I said, I want to experience the world. I want to go and see. And she took a deep breath. I think she was a bit surprised. She was shocked. She thought I was here for good. So she took a deep breath and she said, tell you what, go down, go to the samadhi for 5 minutes, then come back. So even at that mid-teens, bit confused. What am I going to learn at the samadhi, you know? What magic is there? But I went and I sat there and I went up. My father was stood to one side, he came forward, I went and sat down. And about 2 or 3 seconds, no word was spoken. Then eye contact, she didn't ask me. She didn't ask me, did you find an answer? Did you hear a voice? A deep breath and she said, you will have to be in French. You will have to be very strong. I was a child. She knew my strengths and weaknesses. I tell you that little incident because again, when she told me you'd have to be very strong, I thought I was the strongest fellow in the world. It wasn't until 3 or 4 years later, when I was in England on my own, I was an officer cadet in the Royal Air Force, I had no idea. You can imagine coming from this background to joining the military, anywhere, whether it was England or here. Initial training, those drill sergeants, they are inhuman. I said, Dada bashed my head and I ran to the mother. Bashing head was nothing compared to what these fellows. And at night, I used to go back to the barracks and almost quietly weep that I've come here to learn to fly airplanes. What are these people? And it wasn't racist. I was the only colored person, if you like, in 188 cadets. It wasn't because I was Indian or I was colored or anything. That's the way they did it. That's the discipline they required. So when you're on a very expensive bomber or a fighter up there, you don't have a tendency to break down or get very angry, if you like. So they have to push you through that. But that is when I remembered that last look of the mothers, straight in the eye. Therefore, you will have to be very strong. And again, at that time, it's something that I've not discussed with anybody. You lie in your bed and say, did she know? How did she know that I'll have to be very strong? And it gave me the kind of strength that's very difficult to explain. You know, I wasn't this heavy, I was much thinner then. You know, I was piling on weight with the new food and exercise regime. And our training course was 2.5 years then. And at the end of the 2.5 years, I won the Sword of Honor. It's there at the RAF Academy, Cranwell, Sword of Honor, 1963, Jyotindra Amin. This is not a boast. This is relating the whole of that story. Anybody here, Pranada, Manada, my captains, if you ask them, would you have thought this man could succeed at military training? As a rule, Gujaratis are not very good at military. But me in particular, I was a gangly young youth. Would I have succeeded? I think they would say no. They would be as surprised. But somewhere down below, I feel there was a hand guiding and pushing. Not just pushing, just guiding, saying, you'll be all right, son. Go on, you'll be all right. So I think I can't give a more positive story to my experiences there. So it's arriving here at a 6-year-old and eventually leaving as a 16-year-old, and subsequently throughout my career I would send cards and I've got replies from her. Normally it would be birthday, but there were times like when I got married, like when I got my commission in the Air Force, and you would get a nice card sometimes. I remember the Air Force time, I got a nice big card with all my blessings, mother's signature on it. So she kept in touch during and after.
Did you inform mother about the prize you won?
Yes.
So
Yes.
did she give any answer?
Blessings. There was a photograph of me getting the Sword of Honor, and I had sent it here, probably to Bhumanba or somebody or Sunanda, I can't remember. But I've got a sign.
Did you keep correspondence with her when you went out with the mother?
Not correspondence in the sense that we know, like big yogis and people have written to Sri Aurobindo and mother and got replies. Not in that sense. There are only significant periods in your life. As I say, you get married, you want her blessing. It's not sitting with the priest and saying what's a good time and date to get married. You just inform the mother. I have known stories where she has said no, or she's not happy, or she said wait, let me think. But I think most of us who grew up then and then left the ashram, we found it necessary. I didn't inform her because my mother or father said I must. Deep down you have, this is one person you have to let know. And it's very, very strange. This is where the two mothers come together. My mother, as a young girl, had worked in the streets of Gujarat with Kasturba, cleaning toilets and all of that. And she had seen some atrocities that the British soldiers would commit. Target practice at temples and things like that. So her love for the British and foreigners as general, she was a very strong person, Chanchal. And here was another lady. Mother had come to Sri Aurobindo, the yoga. She had totally embraced this culture. In amongst all of this, quite a few ashram boys, I know of 3 or 4 who went into the services, went into the army and so on. But for somebody like me to suddenly go into the Royal Air Force, I personally at the time didn't think I was doing anything wrong or different. But subsequently when you think about it, I wonder if my own mother and both my mothers, whether they would have thought, pourquoi? No? But that's all. When you had hard times and you closed your eyes and took a deep breath, there was that support. It was always there. It was always there. And I came back 1973. I left in 1959.
So came back after
14 years.
Yes.
So I went back to Africa, finished some of my schooling, you have to pass exams, and went to England. So 73, after I got married, I came back. And you couldn't see the mother then. You couldn't go and visit and see her. And I remember we were at Shabda House with Sunanda then, 15th of August. And suddenly there was news spread like wildfire. And I went and saw my mother and my father. And my mother used to work in the dispensary. She used to make soup. So she had a right to go in there. So she got all her hands
What
wet.
was that name?
Chanchalben. And she took us in there, climbed the stairs on the flat roof above the dispensary. And every vantage point was occupied. How the news got around so fast, I don't know. That was the most beautiful evening. She came into the balcony, that side balcony. We were all stood there. And you could look beyond the roof at the sky. You talk to anybody who was there that day. Now August, normally you don't get rains here. You had the most incredible clouds built up behind the ashram building. You could see it. The mother there, those incredible clouds, black clouds, and light. And we had a shower of rain. Yeah? That is probably the most significant balcony darshan I've ever had, and that was the last one she gave. So,
Which year it was?
1973. Yeah, August the 15th. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was. That was the last darshan. Yeah.
You had darshan of Aurobindo also.
No, I missed him by one day. I say, the day we sat by the samadhi, he'd been laid to rest the day before, 9th. And the 10th was the first time I sat by the samadhi. I'm not sure if Sunanda Ben had seen Sri Aurobindo.
Yeah, we have taken once or twice her interviews. We'll be taking some more
Yeah.
subsequently. Tell us, those days you knew sadhaks, like Poitrata, Nunida, any old sadhaks, if you had any rapport and some experience which you like to share with us?
I was mad keen on cricket, even as a small boy. So if there was any cricket anywhere, they were doing net practice in the playground or anything, I would be there, it's part of it. And in those days, my mentor, somebody who taught me everything I knew then, was Jyotindra. Jyotindra, darshan. And I would follow him like a little puppy. Wherever, and Jyotindra would teach me everything I wanted to know about cricket. So, a very strong rapport there. There are people who are not directly involved with you. Some of them are directly involved, like Padma. She used to look after the boarding. Mohini in her boarding school. They really guided your life, and particularly people like me, the disciplinary side of it. Tara was a great influence. Dada, I told you, if I was ever scared of anybody in the Aurobindo ashram Pondicherry, it was Dada. And even today, I love Dada. Subsequently, when I came back, I would go and pay my respects there. In my mind, every time I saw his face, why? Why did you hit me that time? If I'd known, maybe it would have cleared the air. But there are a lot of individuals like that who gave you intense amount of love, like Sudhir Sarkar. He could have been not my father, my grandfather. There were some ladies at the time. I used to suffer from chronic asthma. And I used to go to Sanjeevanda. I don't know if you know Sanjeevanda, fantastic artist. So Arupda, I used to go there in the afternoon. Preeti, we used to learn the basics. And I think he had one or two sisters. And there would be some whispering going on. And the sisters who quietly, against the ashram rules, would take me in the back room and feed me some fish. They would say, it is good for it. As I say, very feeble looking boy, said this is good for it. So that kind of love, you know. So many people. Vasudev Bhai, who was another, Puraniji, you know. I don't know if did you ever meet Purani?
No, I heard about him.
You can read the books, you can read about him. I've been very fortunate that Diman Bhai, my father, Pujalal, they were all little kids in his place in Gujarat, in his akhada. And it was probably his magnetism that brought them here first. He was the one that introduced them and guided them towards Sri Aurobindo. Otherwise, people like my father, what do they know about Sri Aurobindo? It was Purani. But so many legends and stories about that man. And that central ashram portion, when you walk in, you get Nalini Senda, then you get Pujalal, then Diman, then Nirodha, and so on. You know, each one a giant on his own stature. And now coming back to the ashram, somehow you miss that. You really miss that. You go in there, and if I'm stood by the steps near the samadhi, you glance up, I can see Diman by there. Right? You go around the side, you can feel Nalinida's presence there, or Madhav Pandit, all giants. So, feel very privileged to have known that part of the family. They never had conversations with the likes of me. Maybe Puraniji and Diwanbai. Yeah, Diwanbai used to take us to Gloria every time we visited the ashram. But under normal circumstances, most kids who grow up, go to school in a community, go into the world, you might be lucky if you meet one or two people like this. We had a whole basket full of them. And then above that you got the mother. Yeah.
Many of your classmates are there in the ashram now. Who are there?
Today I was in Prosperity, I was talking to Aruna Ben. Tublu, Kanu, then Kake, who's sadly passed on. Then Ashok, Anjana's brother, he's in Singapore, but he was in that group. John Allen, who also came back and settled for a while, Olga's son. That whole group and anybody associated with that, Kavitadi. People are very surprised when I say Kavitadi was, because they think she's much younger and much fitter than me. She is. She's fantastic. So that era, my brother was 6 years, Pratap was 6 years older, and I was telling Subodh that today, that from that group, there are a lot of people who are still here. You know, Surendra and Rangnath, and there, I don't know if you would remember this, but there was a group in the mid-50s called Narendra's group. There was a green group, red group, white group, all that. There was a grey group. They used to call Narendra's group. Narendra, Johar. You know, all these extremely fit, extremely serious fellows would join grey group. And within that, Narendra used to look after them. He was like a proper captain, 24-hour day captain, not just evenings. So a lot of those people are still here. And then amongst, when you say somebody that I've kept in touch with subsequently, Kittuda, he used to come and visit me, stay with me in England when he used to come on his lecture tours. And there are subsequently, there are some people, I call them magicians. For this institution and this ashram, you owe them a great debt. People like Vilas. I call her the ashram ambassador worldwide. The amount of energy, the amount of effort she expends in keeping us all linked together. Vilas came through the system much after me. I also, between 73 and about 79, every time I used to come, every 2 years, they used to invite me to the school to talk about my experiences in the Air Force. It's always very exciting. So every time, so a lot of those kids remember me. So I bump into them now and I say, I'm sorry, have we met? He said, oh, you came to the school and talked about the RAF. So there is that link. And it's so nice that some of them, Binuda, Ramraj, they're all coming back, the full circle.
Yeah, many of them, you know, after the retirement, they're coming back home again.
Yes, yes, yes.
They feel
So many
their
of them.
place is here.
Yeah.
So how you feel, even now, the mother is there with you and guiding you there, and when you come here, you feel you are back to your own house. How is it?
There are moments. Some people find that at the samadhi. Some people, I cannot walk in the balcony street without feeling it and momentarily stopping where Mrududi's house was, you know. Momentarily I'll stop, and almost scared of looking up because I can feel her there. The stairs where she used to come down in a sari. So that's where you feel that presence. And
you were telling me some time back, during tea time, that you wanted to share something about the staircase.
yeah,
About the
yeah.
photo.
It's, you know, you see pictures of saints. You might see a picture of Jesus on the cross or something like that. To me, as a 6-year-old, standing at the bottom of the stairs, jostling around with all other 6-year-olds, that she's going to come down the stairs and then turn around, and she used to stand there momentarily. Not for you photographers, she used to stand there and then descend. That is an experience that will stay with me forever. She was floating. As she came down, she was floating. And when she came right down, she would sort of touch our heads, and we weren't asked to move out of the way. We just moved out of the way. And consequently, that staircase, as I said, my wife is an architect, she designs houses. What she has designed for us, wherever, that staircase is there. And that photograph is there, that picture. Even if the photograph wasn't there, if I close my eyes, I would see it. That's as near to divinity. We don't like boasting. I don't. This experience and that experience and this miracle, that miracle. I've never experienced any miracles apart from the few things I've shared with you today about her saying, you'll have to be very strong. Now, anybody would say, yeah, no, you're going out of the ashram. I related to the times in my life subsequently, where I said, not only did I remember the words, but I felt the strength. I felt the push, that you can't give up now. You've got to keep going. But like, these are experiences you can only share with others who have met her, others who got close to her through her reading or through meditation. You know, you're making a movie or you're making a video where there will be experiences. Some of them will be verging on the miraculous, if you like. And I don't knock that. Some people have experienced that.
We have taken an interview with because some others. They also look upon the mother as a mother,
Yes.
physical, as their own physical mother.
Yeah.
They never looked upon her as a divine.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
felt that relationship just like mother and
Yeah.
daughter and son. Like that.
Yeah. And that is the one major advantage we had, people that you mentioned, that we are here from a very young age. Our parents had heard obviously about the Guru, and they'd come here, met the mother, and that one significant fact remained, no matter how old or young you were. It isn't that you automatically accepted everything the mother said. But somehow, I can't ever remember talking to people like Lalji Bhai, Udar, can't ever remember anybody getting into an argument with them. Your own mother, you get into a lot of arguments with. I can't ever say, I said this to mother and I did this to mother. No? I personally can't remember. I remember Dada, hearing stories that Dada used to be firm with her when she got really old, and she needed that. She needed an elder son to be firm. But I can't ever remember people of my father's age or Dhiman Bhai's age, Champaklal, with mother, no. That was a universal acceptance of a universal mother. That's a very interesting aspect of it. I'm just reading a book, only started it 2 days ago, about Mirabai, who came from a very noble English family. Her father was an admiral. And age of 15 or 16, she had read a book by Roland and came and stayed with Gandhiji. But in her mind, Gandhi was that great being. So here we have a situation. Most of us have read and know the story of how the mother came, how she met Sri Aurobindo. She had met him and known him way before physically seeing him. All that, we never questioned that. Total acceptance, you know. There's nothing unusual in that. It's only when we get older we think about that. Okay, my God, she'd been to Japan, she'd born in Tunisia, she's French, you know, and this total devotion to Sri Aurobindo, you know, at that level. That is astonishing, you know. But again, coming back to us, I think I'm 68 today. Hopefully I'll live as long as my father. He was 96.
Oh.
But he was a child of the mother's. He always, you know, was always Mataji. And never any argument in the mind. Never any discussion, debate. The only person he would get into real debates was Dimanbai. Dimanbai's, he had the worst job in the ashram for years, was to fund the ashram. And people like my father who were in Africa, and he used to constantly write letters and telegrams, more money, more money, more money.
As far as those written that they were the pillars of the ashram.
Yes,
like
yes,
and some others.
yeah, yeah. That always make sure there is food on the table, you know, when times were very difficult. So all those battles they would have. But on this path, the spiritual path, never any argument. You know, sometimes you wonder, why do you say this is the right way? Why isn't that the right way? The people who are here are very intelligent people, thoroughly accepted that, thoroughly went along with it.
So do you still feel that mother's presence and guidance in your life? Whenever you are in crisis, you get the answer how to move about.
See, 1973, is, I told you, I had the last darshan. I think, which month did she pass away?
November something.
Yeah. So in November, I remember I was flying an aeroplane, I landed at Miami. And I'd just gone to the hotel and little bookshop. I was looking around. I saw the Time magazine. There was a photograph of the mother on the front. The mother of Aurobindo, either there or a main page story. So 73 to today, almost 40 years. You know, it's a long time. Now, for instance, if you go to the Gandhi ashram, I live on the outskirts of Ahmedabad. The Gandhi ashram in Ahmedabad is a museum piece. To an extent, it's tokenism, right? There might be a small school or this or that, a khadi or whatever, but it's tokenism. This place is unique. I haven't been to Shantiniketan, so I wouldn't know. But I'm told there is still very much alive, the principles and philosophies. There was Shangit and culture and all that. Here, it's something beyond that. There are times when one wonders, where the giants that we mentioned, these people like Pujalal, Dyuman, Amritada, we all knew, and we read their things, Champak Lal, for instance. One wonders, in another 30 or 40 years, whether the likes of them, the pillars as you call them, will be around to sustain this. I often think, I'm a practical man, that is it the school that will keep it going? You know, because education, of course, is paramount. I wonder if a child who came to the school after 1973, or even let's say 63, her mother wasn't so active. would have the same memories, the same feelings, the same thoughts, not fondly, practically. How did the mother guide me through life? How is she guiding me today? Whether those children would still have that, because they didn't have a one-to-one relationship. But then again, there are certain other people who died hundreds of years ago, and their teachings and are very strong today. You know, why do people like us start reading books about Chanakya? You know, 2,300 year old story. Why does it appeal to me? Not only because he is a great teacher or an administrator, but it does. So, do you know, there was something all the way through, I didn't understand it so well, the philosophy of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. As a child growing up here, people like my mother, people of that age, they were waiting for a miracle. Really, they were waiting for the miracle. I didn't understand that. Then sometimes I would talk to my sister, Sunanda, when she's 12 years older than me. You would read, and people were saying, on this such and such a date, miracle is going to happen. To me, the miracles are seeing people like Dimanbai, people like Shivabai, who live this yoga, this philosophy, day in and day out. The fact that my father died at 96, a day or two before he died, he was doing Sirsasana like he always did. And he toppled over, with a smile on his face. That Parichanda, he met people like that. They, to me, were the living example of this philosophy. Didn't need any miracles. Really didn't need any miracles.
See, you were here in 50s and now 60, 70 years have passed. So that the mother's presence, that atmosphere that you used to feel when mother was there. So whenever you come, you feel the same, the presence, that atmosphere.
No, you don't feel it. You don't feel it as a rule, right? People like me have to look for it, right? It can happen during a meditation. It can happen, as I say, walking past the balcony. 100% I feel it there. I don't have to look for it. I don't have to meditate. I feel it. It's like a slap in the face. I always feel it. Funny enough, near Debuda's room, you know where the car used to come in? If I go and stand there, I feel it. I'll shake. Because in the evening we used to go and stand there when she came back from the playground, open the door and she used to go upstairs. That we're very, very lucky. You know, there are not a lot of people now who would have had those experiences. I would say a handful, 40, 50 people. So
see, you had the privilege to have all these special experiences,
yes.
contact with the mother. So how do you like the present students when they complete their education, when they go out in life outside? Because when you went out, mother gave a guidance, said you have to build up that strength, you will become strong. That mother's guidance was constantly there and pushing you with her blessings. Now how do you lack the present students when they go out to carry that flame as you went out? How would you like them to go out with, taking this atmosphere, this presence of the mother in ashram with them?
I would imagine that things have changed a lot in these last 60 years. A lot. If you take an ashram school kid, the 1950s, early 1950s, late 40s, there was no outside world. You came here, you were here. Like my brother in 1956, Pratap, my mother had talked to him about going back to Africa. He had no idea about traveling to Madras, getting his passport renewed, getting a ticket, no idea whatsoever. One of the most astonishing stories, when Naujad Bhai Poddar passed away. I had arrived on the same day, and being family, I was coaxed into service. And one of my jobs was to take Dyuman Bhai to Madras airport to receive the body. And I took him there. Now the airport is familiar to me, so I took him there, and I said it'll be some time, another 2 hours before the flight. And I had to go and meet other guests who are coming. And in the corridor, he says, this will do me. So I found a stool and sat him down there. And I said, I'm coming, Kaka. And I disappeared. It must have been an hour when I suddenly remembered. And I dashed back. He was sat absolutely stock still. No water, no refreshment, nothing. Then I asked him, can I do that? He said, no, you go and do whatever work. The astonishing thing about this story is, I talked to him on the way back. I said, Dyuman Bhai, do you get a chance to come out to the ashram occasionally? He had never been to the ashram. Dyuman, such a great provider for this ashram, and I think he didn't used to go beyond Gloria. So that, today we take it as read through the medium of IT, and we know the whole world, right? So kids of today, I presume, during November, December, most of them go away on holidays to their parents and all that. That was unheard of in those days. So we didn't know what the outside world was. And we totally, not practically, if you have to go to Madras to buy a ticket, you didn't go and ask mother's permission or ask mother how to do it. Of course you didn't. But deep down you knew that strength, that force was there. That's all you relied on. I'll do it. Mother is with me. Today you hear people say, Mother's grace. We use it very lightly, that term. But somewhere it's there. The next generation who didn't first-hand experience it can still fall back on, rely on that. I don't know. We have to talk to them, you know. People, the middle generation, people like Vilas, I spoke so highly of the work, and commendable work she's doing. I don't know how much first-hand contact she had with the mother. I don't. But she is the intermediate generation. Sunanda Ben, Manoj Da, and they're the first one. Then they're the intermediate. Now there is the new generation. So, yeah.
To end up our conversation, just one last, your most memorable moment that which ever remains in your mind about the mother. So is there any one moment that is spent with the mother which you cannot forget all your life?
It has to be that last leave taking. Mother, I want to go with my father, go and sit by the Samadhi for 5 years, come back, went up. She knew that, confused as I was, she knew that I had made the decision. She didn't ask me to spell it out. She took a deep breath and she said, you will have to be very strong, my child. And the significance of that, very easy to say. All of us at some stage need, but in my case, there were instances for the life I chose to lead, where I needed that strength. I really needed that strength. And
that has remained.
That is a constant. And even if today there are instances, I've come back to settle in India, there are times where you need strength, and one deep breath, and actually I can see her there, sitting at the top of the stairs in a chair, and because you're coming up the stairs, you're slightly higher than you. It's there.
So it is very fresh and living.
Very fresh, very living, and it'll stay with me forever. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Jyotindra Bhai. for sharing your experiences with
Thank
us,
you.
which I hope it will inspire the younger generation,
I
to
hope
live
so.
up
I
a
hope
good
so.
life.
I hope so. And someday I would like to see other people's responses as well. People like Preeti Di and Kanuda and all of them.
Sure. They have been put up in the ashram website. Already some few talks,
Okay.
and you can have a look at them.
Okay.
And if possible, I'll make a coffee and give you.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.